Hello, this is Greg Misiorek. This is Greg, and the session here is about the Business Application Studio connecting to HANA. HANA is a database that's outside of SAP Cloud Platform, and BAS is very well inside of SAP Cloud Platform, and it is a tool that has been available to us for about 6 months now. I'm a happy graduate from a class that presented the tool to the rest of the world. And wouldn't you know, my cloud trial access got refreshed yesterday. I have a brand new cloud platform available to me, and it magically moved from Europe to the US. So I'm happy for that. What I'm trying to do here is to run the simplest possible thing according to the mantra, keep it simple, stupid. So if I'm successful, I should be able to run a very simple query, which selects all records from the table. Again, outside of SAP Cloud, but very well, and I'll speak more to it, very well within the clouds that are out there. I'm trying to avoid any iLegs or third-party software as much as I can. But even this presentation obviously needs to use somebody's software. Again, it's open source, but it's been very well supported and maintained by a very prominent person in the SAP community, Thomas Young, who helped me to set it up, I would say about a month ago, and it's a great tool. If you stay with me, hopefully we can see it. So you may know or may not know, it's open source. It's on GitHub, and you can go and use it as a sample and try to deploy it for yourself, whichever environment you're in. And again, I have been provided great support and encouragement from SAP community, and this event is a great idea. It's sort of a 24 rolling as the globe turns. More and more people or different people in different time zones with different schedules join in and sort of can go back and forth in time, virtually and physically. So it's a great way to do things, I think, in the new world. Okay, I'm not sure about the refreshes of my screens. Hopefully, everybody can see the SAP HANA screenshot. And while I'm talking, I will be doing some behind-the-scenes work. The studio.
Yes, it's visible. Perfect.
Trying to avoid showing my passwords and proprietary information, so to speak. But going back to the screen, what you see is the basic tool, which in my mind I consider is for the financial user. And when I mention financial user, it's somebody who has to do reporting, and usually happens in a monthly and quarterly fashion, goes into filing, all kind of legal things that need to happen. And if it's a well-established business, the stock is being traded every second when the market's open, and these days it's also after the market's close. But kind of going off track here. This is a screenshot of what I know as a pivot table. So that's today available. It's in HANA Express. It's being hosted on the cloud, and anybody can use it. And again, this example is taken from the great provided by SAP through tutorials. That's SAP world as it kind of opens itself, trying to live in the open source world. And you can go in and take your tutorial, test it out, and raise an issue. Get great help and move on. The reason I'm talking about it is actually the next page. Is finance user may not be familiar with tools of terminal server and never heard about PuTTY and WinScope, but these are the actual tools that kind of remain available, are in open source. in a shareware fashion. They can also be used to connect to the backend databases. So on the left-hand side, what you see is the traditional Excel pivot table, which is comparable to what's in HANA analysis tab. And on the right-hand side, and I believe there was already a session mentioning the integration. On the right-hand side is the newest Microsoft Excel, which actually provides additional tooling that is sort of catering to the business user or to the finance user. So what you have is not only the pivot table, which you also can pretty much use, although it's not called that in Web IDE, but you also have additional tooling around SQL. So anybody with access to Office 365, Excel, basically run queries and do additional things that are not available or I haven't seen in SAP HANA. Okay, so when we do this, try to switch to a session. It's the title of this presentation. Any questions in the stream? Comments? Because I lost that information.
It's looking great.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I'm not sure about delay here, but this is the BAS or Business Application Studio. Again, it got refreshed for me yesterday. So I had to reinstall the actual connection tool written by Thomas Young. And without much further ado, I'm going to run the first command. Okay, so that's a good sort of a way of introducing the finance user to the new world if they ever want to get to the terminal server. I tried to use something that I was reminded of, and again, was taught to me by another member of SAP community. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do this. Okay, you have to be a pretty good typer or typist to actually be able to use it. Originally, so I don't aspire to be that typist, but I'm learning. So what we see here is the set of commands that come from HANA Express and gives me the sort of the information around the security given by that tool. I think the better command for this, just toggle into it. Oh, we're not there yet. Okay, so we can see that we're connected to HANA Express. This is the version. I think it's a lower version that's available on cloud platform, but it's quite new. It's been marketed through, at least the way I know it, from Amazon Web Cloud or web services. This is the size. So basically, I'm running from my own machine a computer that's in the cloud. And so run a query here. Before I do that, just escape. We made a mistake. Basically, right now, I'm talking to HANA database, which serves this client, serves information to me. So what I can do, now I can see the one view. On to query as well. So now I can go back to my simple query. And what we can see, if this is obviously a trivial example, but we can have a table sent to us to this tool. I can basically copy it into Excel if I want to, and it works. So it's a very simple SQL, just to select the records, run one from the view. All it does is just lets me to run the simple select statement and get additional, sorry about that, get additional information from this view. All it does, it just adds new new column and provides new logic. It's a very trivial sort of checkbook example. So with this, I would like to switch back to my presentation. We were able to do some demoing and come back here. What I was doing or have been doing so far, I'm not sure how much time we have left. Again, I lost all the information that I was testing with last day or two. We have here is the Business Application Studio. It runs in the cloud. I understand it's Amazon Web Services, which is one of the hyperscalers. I was connecting to HANA Express. I use Amazon Web Services only to run Linux instances, and a little bit more about this a little bit later. Sort of losing my finance hat and then putting on IT hat when we start talking about Linux. This particular machine that I just enabled for voice and video and found out the video is taking too much space. But with voice, hopefully still there. I'm running this demo in this Discord tool, new to me, without installing any software. So if we can, we try to avoid installing new software. If it's a reliable cloud connection, I haven't lost connection for a number of years. Amazon have been very stable. I'm assuming both Google and Microsoft have to be stable to compete with Amazon with the cloud. So we can pretty much rely on it. And again, why install any software that you don't need or don't want on your machine? Because in the end, you don't really know what's happening to your computer. Okay, so speaking of this model of development and operations running on hardware versus cloud, even when I have to pay for it, if it's reasonable, is that I can spin an instance and without installing anything locally, I can always go back and store my image very easily, and it's affordable. So I can just nuke it if I install too many things and go back 2 days before, and there's my backup. So I'm in the system that was running and doing things for me 2 days ago. I realize it's renting, it's not hardware, but it's just a matter of economics, how much you pay for what and for what you need to do. Cal, I think a lot of people are familiar with Cal. It's another way of projecting making cloud available through SAP, sort of expanding to hyperscalers, which is Cloud Appliance Library. Newest software is being offered, and it makes the signing up for cloud very easy and no hassles. However, if you don't know what's happening in the cloud and you have a running tab, it can get very expensive. So I would warn any new cloud users, careful. With having said that, I realize that SAP is investing in cloud access, and I appreciate keeping the sandboxes free on the 90-day basis, even when I don't really know what's going to refresh to. It sort of nukes the existing environment and it goes away, I definitely appreciate the access. So it's a sandbox, so you can play with it. Don't obviously plan on any production go lives with it. Okay, I already started talking about Linux, and this particular tool that I just demoed, I learned through the class that it's actually a Debian, and Debian is one of the early distributions. Some other popular distributions of Linux, and maybe that's not for the finance user to care too much about, but definitely near and dear to IT infrastructure is the distributions of Linux. And you can, this is just maybe 1/10 of the chart. So you can see there's so many lanes that you trying to keep coordinated that it's just amazing that this system is stable. Some other distributions that I've tried and used and ran, Ubuntu is 18, version 16, 18, now 20. Probably will not continue with Ubuntu. I've seen it on SAP Cloud Platform. Great. I believe it's most of it's open source, not everything. SLES is the Linux that HANA is running on. I'm not sure if that was displayed on in the HANA client. And RHEL is the Red Hat. Okay, I'm assuming no questions.
No questions, and you have 5 minutes more.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Okay, so one of my last things here. So even though I'm doing SQL, it's not only SQL. So there's a lot of other code that's running and has been written by somebody at some point, and most of it is in open source space, not all of it. So JavaScript has been around for a long time, even though it starts with Java. It's not Java. May be lost on the finance user, but IT obviously is aware of it. JSON is another format that has been available more recent than XML. And Go, many people may not realize, but Go is supported by the same person who wrote C, which is on the underpinning of Unix and those Linuxes I was showing before. I don't want to be a little bit too sort of taking too many sides here. Did have experience with Windows subsystem Linux. Have a good experience. Maybe it was too early in the making. It was a tool early in the making. It just didn't work for me. Other products that we use or try to use or not use when Microsoft discontinued them, I don't want to spend too much time on Microsoft here. Obviously, I'm here for BAS and to stay the way it is and getting better and better. This was supposed to be my last slide, sort of looking at what other cloud companies are doing and where they are positioned. And the only result that was legally available to me through the cloud or through Google search, which is the most popular engine, is this little picture. I'm not sure why Oracle is here. Obviously, I couldn't pull any of the magic quadrants. I'm very well aware what the companies are, position, and how they're doing, and which quadrant hyperscalers are in. Just take away for what it is, this little picture. Okay, so embrace. That's my message. Kind of stay with Azure. That's another cloud company, very familiar, very successful these days. Seems like we have to stay with them for a while. Companies are in business for money, not all of them are nonprofit. So thank you, SAP, for giving me the platform, and YouTube for hosting the platform. I think I give enough credit to Microsoft already. I realized that the team here, that the support, put in a lot of hours into this. I wish you all success. I think it's a great way of moving things forward. I don't think it's going to replace live events, but it's definitely something that we should spend more and more time trying to make work for everybody. So thank you all for recording and watching me here. And I have a few more backup slides. I can just quickly run through them.
Greg, we have a question.
Sure.
So in the beginning, you mentioned the accountants and reporting month closing. How would you, with your experience, if you have any recommendations about how accountants can get into systems, because they are very much focused on Excel at the moment?
I think some of the accountants are very well versed in SQL, so they may not. What I think accounts are trying to avoid is to get bogged down in IT projects. So they're not interested in finding out the details of the architecture. They just want a tool that will work for them when they need it. And around month end close, it's a very busy and crunch time, and they don't have time to wait for support to make things work or deploy software, right? You can't really upgrade or deploy software in the middle of month or quarterly close. So I would say make it as easy as painless to those accountants out there, like this Excel pivot table that you can just drag and drop. You don't have to log in, just buttons will work for you. So Microsoft is obviously competing with Google Sheets, and tool, in my mind, is still ahead of the game here. I wish HANA, analysis, cloud, have you, would be able to be in that spot. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I can help move them in that direction with this talk.
Great, thank you. So that is
Sure.
time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for answering and asking questions and staying with me in the sandbox and moving on to the live event, because it just blew up the second I was ready to go in.
No problem. We are done, so you can just disconnect.